What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Breakdown. Today, me and my buddy Edgar here are going to be talking to you guys about Eternals. And yes, we are going to be talking spoilers. It's going to be more of a conversation back and forth. So guys, sit down, join us, and let's go ahead and give you the real breakdown. Alright, man. So, hey, dude, Eternals, it's out. I'll tell you right away, man, this was my most anticipated Marvel movie of the slate that they had announced.
I agree, yeah.
After watching, the first few trailers, man, I was like, I'm beyond excited for this. I saw the cast, and I thought, knowing a little bit about the Eternals, man, I was very psyched for this movie. So, those were kind of the expectations that I was, coming into it with. What was your expectations going into the movie beforehand?
Well, there's a lot going on for me because, I can admit I didn't know a whole lot about the Eternals, when they announced it. I knew, because you and I, we keep up with, what's in the news and such. So, we knew for a while that it was going to be announced. But, my first thing was, the cast was ridiculous.
Right.
And I agree. I really liked everything I was seeing. I liked what they were doing with it. And then I think the key difference between you and me is I dive a little deeper in spoiler culture, leaks and stuff.
That's true.
So back towards the beginning of the year, I want to say February, March. I don't know if you knew about this, but there was just a full on plot leak for Eternals.
Oh no, I did not.
It was from beginning to end. It leaked on Reddit.
Oh man.
And so I was like, oh, I'm going to read this because it's not going to be true. It's not going to be it. And so I read it, and the moderators for the subreddit were like, no, this person has credentials, they showed us proof that it's legit, and the plot leak was legitimately the movie that we got.
Oh,
it was straight up. But on paper, it didn't sound that great, because I was like, oh, Chris is the villain,
Oh man, you knew that?
Yeah, I was
no.
Salma Hayek's dead within her first 5 minutes.
Oh, bro.
So, dude, I knew everything. I knew the whole thing.
Oh, man.
I've known this whole year. And so, when I read it, I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
And then, there was word that, Marvel felt that this was their first Oscar caliber film.
Right.
Once it actually premiered and, all the reviews were coming in.
Critics, yeah.
I was like, oh, God.
Which, by the way, right now, the tomato meter from the critics is at 47%, which is the first negative Marvel review. I mean, but that's something, right? I mean, the fact that they've gone 20-something movies and this is the first negatively reviewed movie, that says something, but then also, what is it saying about Eternals, So we'll dive into that a little bit, but would you say, though, you were you excited for it? Were you, or were you more, intrigued? I mean, you kind of knew the plot, I guess, but...
Well, I didn't know how accurate it was going to be. With each passing trailer, I was like, this is adding up more and more, but...
Yeah.
But no, I loved what I was seeing. I loved the visuals. It has its own, texture to it, I want to say. It just looked unique. I love their outfits.
The wardrobe.
They look great together. They each, have their own unique color. I really loved everything I was seeing. So I loved the trailers, and I was excited. I was just... A few things were making me nervous, but...
Gotcha. Yeah. Nice, man. So, I've seen it 3 times. I think you've seen it 3 times as well, right? Mm-hmm. Walking out of the theater, what is Edgar thinking when he's walking out of that first viewing?
I don't get the hate. It was the first thing that I thought to myself, Iron Man 3 exists, and you're review bombing this movie?
Iron Man 3, yeah.
I loved it. I rate it a solid 8.9.
Okay.
Out of 10. And, yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was different. I liked that the structure is non-linear, and I love that we go back to the past and different points. And the first thing that I picked up right away that I loved was it didn't start with the usual Marvel fanfare. It started with that opening crawl, and as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, okay, so they are going for something a little different. So walking out was I am satisfied that. I don't get it. I don't get the hate.
I'll tell you, dude. Walking out of Eternals the first time, I loved it. I loved the movie. Walking out, my thoughts were, this is in my top 5 Marvel movies.
Yeah, it's just slightly out of it for me.
When I walked out, man, I said to, my sister who I went to go see it with, I said, I loved it. I loved that it was different, right? I loved how dramatic and deep, and it was more based on relationships and humanity, I loved that. But then I also said, okay, I can understand why for the average movie fan, or the critics, that are expecting a Marvel, like what we've been getting from Marvel, they might walk out and be like, what did I just watch? Like, wait, was that really a Marvel movie? You know? But me personally, based off of like my tastes, right? Like, I loved it. I honestly walked out and was thoroughly surprised, and I immediately was like, I need to see this again. And I thought it was. I was so happy that Marvel did something different. I was so happy that, you know, Kevin Feige got someone like the director Chloe Zhao, who you know obviously won for Nomadland Best Director. That they took a chance, right? I mean, they're branching out and they're doing different things. People talk about the Marvel formula and like, you know, the movies can sometimes feel the same, or but at the same time, not only does it work, but sticking to that formula and having that success both financially and critically allows them to do projects like this where like they're able to venture out and say like, okay, we want to do a Guardians of the Galaxy, which is completely different. We want to do, you know, a Doctor Ant-Man. Strange, you know, an Ant-Man, right? And now in Eternals where like they're diving into different things, partially to introduce and get the audience used to like, you know, in Doctor Strange it was like, all right, we got to get them used to like the mystical side of, like, you know, the MCU, and this with the Eternals, it's really getting into the cosmic aspect, right? And Celestial. Right, and the Celestials, and like, you know, one of the scenes that just makes me think about is when at the end of the movie when Arishem shows up, and when you first see like his eyes in the clouds, I'm like, please don't do a Fantastic Four 2 and just be like a cloud, right? Galactus being just like a cloud. But then I liked that it cleared up, and you saw him, a giant being, and I'm like, this is them being get ready for Galactus. Like this is them being like, get used to it. Like like this is us warming you up for like when Galactus eventually shows up, right? At least that's what I thought, right? So like little things like that, and they can take chances and risks, right? Which I mean, to me, they don't feel like risks, but I can see like when you got all that money like on the line, making a movie like this that maybe doesn't fall exactly as far as genre-wise to like a bunch of your other movies. I thought it was great, and I think the reason I really love this one, you know, compared to other ones, is that I felt a lot of things. I felt a lot of emotions. I felt a lot of weight in relationships and in interactions and in, you know, consequences of some of these people's actions. So I walked out of it completely loving it. I honestly, like, I went with high expectations, and not only did it meet it met them, but like it also exceeded them. So I did think though that there were like some issues with the third act, right? Like not issues. I just thought that some of the plot things were, you know, a little interesting choices. You know, because I didn't know anything going into it, but yeah, so that was my experience, like, you know, walking out of it. So you said that you kind of have it a little bit outside your top 5, so you would say you really enjoyed it then.
No, I really did. I think of the movies this year, Shang-Chi edges it out just by a little bit for me.
I know you really love Shang-Chi.
I love Shang-Chi, yeah. That's...
A lot of people did.
For me, Shang-Chi is like... I took a quiz that like shows you where your like Marvel movies lie. Like it like asks you a bunch of questions, and it like tells you basically like
what your rating is or whatever.
So I think Shang-Chi was 6th or 7th for me, like just outside the top 5.
Okay.
I would put Eternals right behind it. Like I love Shang-Chi, but Eternals was right there. Like
gotcha.
There was, I think, I don't know if I'd say pacing is an issue. It's just, you know, it is a long movie. It's not one where I feel like Shang-Chi, I feel like, you know, I can sit down and rewatch a lot. Eternals, I can rewatch it. I don't necessarily know if it has that same level of, like, rewatch value. Yeah. Because it is more... Yeah, because it is kind of a deeper thing that you're digging into. I love, for example, that, like, you meet all the characters in the past, but then you don't really meet them until, like, they're, you know, the point in which they enter the story.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, you know, it takes a little longer to get to everything, but I love it. It's right outside the top 5 for me.
So let's talk about some of the things that we really like, man. I mean, for me, I think the casting was spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, watching it a third time yesterday, I just was like, I love Angelina Jolie in this role. I love, even though Icarus with that turn, right? I mean, the first time watching it, halfway through, I'm like, I wish
Icarus. I could have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I wish I could have enjoyed that turn.
Right. I mean, you kind of spoiled yourself a little bit, but like I'm loving Icarus. I'm loving the way that they're demonstrating his power, and like, you know, and then the more I watch it, Makari is like awesome, like one of my favorites. Gilgamesh, like I love that they made Gilgamesh like the character that he is. He's like powerful, super powerful, but he's also like the one that's spitting truth, spitting facts. He's the most wise. Twice in the movie, he gives Cersei like really wise words. Right, one of them is like when he literally just says like, you know, maybe you're not listening, and then that's how he's able to connect with Arishem. She's able to connect with Arishem. And the other one is actually through Angelina Jolie's character, Athena, when she's like, oh, like, Gilgamesh once said this. And I'm like, once again, even dead, he's like coming through, right? Even dead, I'm the hero, right? So, so I thought, like, and Salma Hayek as, you know, Ajax, I thought it was brilliant that they, like, decided to change that character up to fit her. Because I saw an interview the other day where they were saying when they reached out to Salma, they were like, hey, we're literally like changing the sex of this character because we envision you in it. And I saw that. I thought that was awesome. So and surprisingly for me, probably my favorite character because he has my favorite scene is Druig.
Oh, really?
I really like the guy. I forget his name, but
Barry Keoghan, I think. Yeah,
something like that. I really liked his portrayal because to me, like, you know, that scene in the temple in Tenochtitlan. Like
when he like rebels. Yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah. Like I understood him 100%, and like his performance there and his speech, like I'm not gonna lie, man, it brought me to tears. Like that scene in the movie brought me to tears. I don't know if I told you, but like the second trailer like brought me to tears as well. Like
really? No.
I don't know what it was about this movie, man, but it really connected with me on many levels, and that performance by Druig, you know. And what he says, and the situation, right, with Athena, you know, and, like, you know, how she gets teared up, and, you know, Angelina Jolie sells it, you know. And that whole scene is just, like, powerful to me, because another thing that I love about this movie is that it brings up, you know, real moral questions and moral and ethical questions and dilemmas that, you know, humanity faces that sometimes we don't really think about. Throughout our history, right? And not just, you know, whatever we're experiencing in our generation, but what humanity has experienced in multiple different generations, and how we as human beings have dealt with certain situations and adversities and you know, things like that. So
I love the scene of Fastos where they explain like, oh, he gave up on humanity a long time ago. And you get that
in the second trailer, that's where I teared up. Really? That's the first time they show that scene.
I feel like when you're watching the trailer, like you can tell, like, oh, that has to be like Hiroshima. Like,
So for me, the actors, like the people they cast were great. And the other thing that I really enjoyed were you know, the casting and the performances, but also the relationships that were portrayed. Like. You know, you have Icarus and Cersei, right? I think at one point Kevin Feige said, like, what people don't understand is that this movie's actually not a romance, but it's kind of like, it's a love story, right?
I think that's what relationship, basically.
He was quoted as saying, like, this is a love story, and people were like, what? You know? So, obviously, you have that one, which I thought worked very well. But then I also love the relationship with Gilgamesh and, you know, Athena. I thought that was, you know, it was powerful in its own way, just how Cersei's and Icarus was powerful in a different way. Mercari and
I love that one.
And Druig, it's like the playful relationship, but you know it's there and it's real. So I really like that, and Sprite not being able to have that relationship and seeing everyone, like that idea of a relationship and different relationships, right? Because then you can also even dive into the relationship of Icarus and Ajax, right? Yeah, that like leader and like follower. And then I love the line, I think I didn't catch it the first time, but like the second time I watched it, because the second time I watched it in Dolby, which was awesome.
I need to get to the Dolby theater.
It was good. The second time, right before he like pushes her off the cliff, she tells him, like, she hugs him and she says, she says like, I
led you astray.
I led you down the wrong path. And the first time I didn't catch that, but that relationship of like, she made him so loyal that it was detrimental, you know? Like, so that idea of relationships throughout the movie I thought was super well done. And even like Kingo having a friendship with Sprite that then she brings up, like, it was just all throughout the movie, and the more I watched it, the more I enjoyed all of them. So those were the things, the casting and like the portrayal of the characters and just the relationships that were portrayed and built, which a lot of the times are the weakest part of the MCU movies, right? I think for me, the strongest comparison that I could think of is Civil War, because that's like
Okay.
for me, Civil War, that relationship of Tony and Steve, and like that fight, it's emotional, right? There's weight to it.
The last fight, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That final fight, and like you know what his father meant to both of them, you know, or what he meant to Steve and what he didn't mean to.
They don't deserve that shield. Yeah, that's
so. To me, that was the last time I got kind of that like weight, like you know, like heavy, like oh my gosh, this is real, this is deep. And here we got it all throughout the movie, and so I really, really enjoyed that.
One of the things that I really liked, and this is such a small aspect of the movie, but I think the fact that they nailed this like shows you just how well done the movie was. The side characters, Karun, I loved him.
Oh my god, yes!
Like normally, like I think the MCU movie that has the best side characters for me is probably Black Panther. Like I don't think there's a character in that movie that I don't care about.
Right.
And I think this one nailed it. Like with Karun, every line that he says, I was cracking up.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Even the third time, it still hits, man. It still hits.
Yeah. The oh my god, I gotta say this just because you brought it up, but in the final battle when Sprite stabs Cersei, and she's like talking to her, and she's going off and just whacks her in the back of the head. Every time. Seen the movie 3 times. Yeah. The last 2 times I know it's coming. As soon as it happens, I'm like, like I can't control myself. It just that's like so perfect, like with the comedic timing.
Yeah. I agree, man. I agree.
But no, Karun, I love all his lines. I love that even though he's a side character, like he also in certain scenes is kind of like the emotion of the scene. Like when Kinko's like, oh, I got this movie, we get BTS just did a cameo, and he's telling him, like, there's no greater calling than, and, like, I loved him. I thought it was great. And then, even at the end, when he leaves, and he tells him, like, thank you for everything you've done for humanity.
Powerful scene. I love that scene.
Yeah, I love that. And, like, to me, if you nail, like, a third-tier character, like, you're doing great.
Yeah.
So, I love that. I love the humor. Like, I feel like they really nailed the humor in this one. Like, there's certain MCU movies where, like, the humor's just doing too much for me. Once again, Iron Man 3.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they're trying too hard for me.
I do see what you mean in certain points. I really love the Guardians. That was one of the
criticisms of it, I remember.
Yeah, that makes sense. But for me, like, I thought the comedy was great. I love when Kingo shoots the Deviant, and he's like, "Come on, did you get that?"
I did so.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, like I love it. I think they all have their moment to shine. So I love the comedy. I love like the character dynamics. Like you were saying, the relationships. Makari and Druig, like based on the trailers, like I didn't know. Okay, what characters am I gonna like? This is a whole lot of characters being thrown at us all at once.
Yep.
And you do get to see the relationships. I love that. And like I was saying before, like with the structure, I love that it's different. I love that it's, just, it's not the Marvel formula, which I also take some issue with that criticism, because, like, what is the Marvel formula? Because I feel like their movies are all pretty different. Like, yes, there's going to be a superhero. Yes, there's going to be a villain.
Yeah. But,
like, I feel like each one has its own thing. Like, you can't tell me that Homecoming and Black Panther are the same. They're not. Mm-hmm. So, but I do like that this one is, it takes that, like, those differences and really, like, just goes all in. Like, I love that this does feel like an artistic Marvel movie.
Yeah, man. There's a lot to love, man. And, like, just hearing you talk about it, like, I'm thinking of more things. Like, speaking of Karun, like, and that character, can we just talk about, like, for me personally, like, I love how worldwide this movie is, how
for sure.
international it is, right? Like, so many times, we hear criticism, and I think, it's sometimes valid, of like, why is it always New York? Why is it always New York? Everything's happening in New York.
Chicago finally got a little moment there.
Yes. When I saw the Bulls jersey, I'm like,
woo,
woo.
Zach LaVine, They're playing tonight, by the way.
So hopefully we get that dub, But I love how international this movie was,
Yeah.
and that they weren't afraid to include characters that, you know, maybe, you know, here in the States aren't as represented, you know, as much. So, you know, Gemma Chan, right, being Cersei, and you know, I think at one point Kevin Feige also said, like, she's kind of the lead. He said, like, there's more than one lead.
Yeah, she definitely is, though.
But she definitely is kind of like the main lead, because I remember when the cast was announced, everyone thought Angelina Jolie is going to be the lead, right?
Yeah.
She's the biggest name.
Yeah, and she's more of a side character.
Yeah. I mean, I still would say, like, there's, like,
she's still very important.
A few leads, you know, but the fact that Cersei, right, Gemma Chan, you know, getting that opportunity, I thought was great. Karun being brought in, and like you said, for him to be for being a tertiary character and having that much screen time, I thought really showed commitment to that, like, you know, diversity and to that inclusivity of, like, hey, this is a worldwide film, right?
I love the Bollywood scene.
Yes.
Like, the fact that they included that.
Yes, and I saw on your social media that you said, like, this is a Marvel movie and there's a Bollywood scene.
Yeah, because I wanted to show people, like, you know, because a lot of people do have it in their head, like, oh, it's just another superhero movie. And it's like, well, no. Like, there's differences. It's very unique. And I think this one in particular, like, the diversity thing is a big thing. I know some people get sick of, like, oh, yeah, it's forced diversity. But, like, you know, in America, we get so used to, like, we see the same 5 streets every day, and we assume that, like, after those 5 streets, like, there's 5 more just like it. And that's not the case.
That's a good point.
And so, like, you know, getting to see, you know, I love that there's so many people of color on this cast. I love that, you know, it's not like, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, you know, there's no explanation for why. It just is.
It's not like in our face and just there for no purpose. And so, going off of what you said, you just said, I agree. I think that, like, it made sense for it to feel as international and as inclusive as it did, because these are Eternals, right? These are people that obviously lived in different parts of the world at different times. So, you know, for them, it's not really about, like, oh, I mean, they literally don't see, you know, skin color, because they've lived through all of time.
Yeah.
They've lived from the beginning, you know, all the way to present time. So they've seen everything, everyone. They've seen, you know, each different country make mistakes. They've seen each different country or you know, I guess race, you know, go through their trials and tribulations. And so they've been there this whole time. So I really liked that, like you said, I like that it's there, but I also like that it made sense for it to be there. It wasn't just shoved in there, you know, shoved in our face or anything like that. So I thought it was very well done, and I thought that it's something that just adds to the film, which is always good, right? That's what you want. If you're going to do something like that, you want it to add to your film, not kind of just be there because it needs to be there. It's not just a check mark that needs to be checked for, you know, for inclusion or something like that. So I thought that was really cool. So Karun was definitely, like, something that I really liked. Can we also talk about, like, the design of their powers, right? Like you were saying, like, their suits, but, like, man, like Fastos and, like,
I really liked
making all that stuff and making the combustible engine, like the gold with those, like, you know, I mean, I'm a sucker for stuff like that, like gold and like Great Gatsby type, right? Like, I have, like, the Great Gatsby poster that's behind me, like all that gold detailing. Like, I'm a sucker for that stuff. I think it looks classy, it looks great, and it made sense for them, right? It's kind of
they look very regal,
eternal, like just all throughout time. That's just, it looks cool, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. The Domo, their ship, I thought was pretty. Like, I seeing that in the trailer, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, this is more like aliens showing up, right? At, you know, at the dawn of time or at the dawn of humanity, right? And just kind of being like, we're here and we're here to help you out. And like, I don't know, I just love their entrance. And I love seeing them in different eras and, you know, how they interacted with each different period. And those deviants, man, like, some of them were really cool looking, and the way they just smacked them around was pretty cool. So what were your thoughts on the deviants? Because I know there's some people that are, like, up and down on them.
I like them. I mean, I think I do have to admit it's probably one of the weaker aspects of the movie in terms of, like, you know, if you're caught, like, if your thought process is, well, the deviants are the villains, you're probably going to be disappointed,
right?
But because ultimately, like, I don't know, who would you call the villain? Icarus, I guess? I mean, like, for example, Arashim, I don't know if I can call him a villain. He's just a force of nature. He's just that's what they do. They're
Yep.
Celestials. They continue to evolve the universe. Icarus, I would say, is probably more so the villain. Yes, he serves Arsham, but like he betrays his family. You know, he's like you said before. He's like loyal to a fault.
Yep.
So like Icarus, you know, you could say he's the villain of the film. So like I think some people are like, well, you know, the deviants are the villains and they're just like side characters, which they really are. They are just side characters in the movie. You're led to believe they're going to be like the main threat, but ultimately, you know, it's an in-family fight. You know, it's like, and so
which I loved.
Yeah, I loved it. I love the ending. Well, like they all shine. Oh my god, Makari is like fighting.
Dude, she's so good.
Yeah, that's some. Honestly, that's the like my favorite speedster that I've seen in film.
Yes,
just the way they did it.
A lot of people have been saying that, and I have to agree.
Yeah, I loved it. But so I think, for example, yeah, the Deviants, I like them. I like for what they do to the story. They're not intended to be this grand overarching villain. If you're walking in thinking Crow is going to be the next Thanos, you're going to be very disappointed because that's not what his role is for the story. I do think he could have been utilized better, utilized a little more, but I still enjoy the Deviants. You don't have the movie if you don't have them. Like, you know, the Eternals, their whole like purpose is in their minds to fight Deviants. And then once that's challenged, once they realize, well, no, there's more to our purpose, that's really when you hit the story.
Mm-hmm.
So you need the Deviants. You need, you know, unfortunately they kind of take a back seat, but you know.
They do have a purpose, and I do like that they address that, because, you know, Arasham talks about, he sends the Deviants first to clear out the Predators, so that life can, you know, be created and can survive.
And then it goes awry.
And I know people were saying, I saw on social media a few people complaining about, like, you know, how that one deviant... did it have a name? I didn't know that it had a name.
Oh, the main one? It's Crow. Yeah.
Crow? Okay, I didn't...
They don't say it in the movie, but it's Crow. Yeah.
Okay, I must have missed that. So, like, you know how it, like, starts absorbing and, like, you're like... If some people were like, what? Like, that's just kind of... Where did that come from? But Arasham tells you, like, the problem was that they evolved, and Eternals were made to not evolve. That's why they haven't changed. So, for them to gain sentience, for them to gain, you know, the ability to absorb and... It makes sense. It is explained. Now, for me, like, kind of going into some, you know, we've been talking up this movie and loving it and everything.
Singing its praises,
but there are a few things that, for me, are kind of, you know, left me wanting a little bit more, I guess, or just, I was like, eh. But for me, the idea of the celestial seed and the emergence and I thought that was a little silly. I thought it was a little far-fetched. I thought that, like the fact that we saw a giant hand coming out of Earth was a little far-fetched to me.
It's a little Transformers type of...
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you're starting to dip out of that, like, my bubble of belief, right?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, with the MCU. And so I started to think, you know, okay, that's kind of silly, but whatever, I'm in it. I love these characters. I love the relationships that have been built. I'm following it. And to me, what kind of added more to my kind of dislike of that move was that when they solve the issue, right, when she freezes him or changes him, converts him, there should be more repercussions to that than just Arasham showing up and taking them away. Like, this Celestial was in the Earth's core. If it's on its way off, like if part of his hand and his face is out, the Earth is cracking, dude. Earth should be cracking apart
on a physical level. Yeah.
Or also, if you want to say, well, no, because I was thinking, I was like, well, if he's starting to come out, there should now be a hole in the center, you know, like, or not a hole,
but
like
water pouring in to the core.
Right. Or also, okay, you want to say, you know what, she froze him, whatever. If Earth's not gonna crack, okay, that's fine. But then the Celestial's in the center, and she just froze it. So you just froze Earth's core. We're all about to die. You know, like,
congrats on stopping our deaths one way and sending us to another path.
Exactly. So, and you know, obviously, Marvel stuff doesn't, you know, especially when you get into the supernatural, right? And, like, you know, it doesn't all have to be explained, right? And it's a movie at the end of the day. But when we have movies like Iron Man, when we have movies that are like, hey, we're, you know, Thor, right, explaining what you call science, we call magic, you know, so when that stuff has been set, And even like Shang-Chi, right? I think Shang-Chi, they did a good job of still keeping it within that bubble of like, you know, what the bubble of belief for like the MCU, I guess, of like this can happen. Okay, it makes
Other
sense,
than the
right?
giant dragon.
Well, okay, that's true. Yeah, yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
But either way, my point is like, I did think just that imagery of like those fingers and like, and sure, you know, okay, it is more Marvel, right? You're talking about Celestials. You're talking about. So I just thought it was a little silly. But honestly, the reason it didn't bother me as much is because I loved everything that came before, and I loved everything else that was done in the movie. Like, these characters meant so much to me by that point of the movie that I was able to say, like, yeah, I think it's silly. It's kind of out of left field, I guess. You know, like, I didn't think I'd be seeing this, but I'm going to buy it because of these characters.
Yeah.
Because of the journey that we've been going with these, you know, people. So, or with these Eternals. So, that was one thing that for me, and the second time and the third time, it gets a little more, like, for me, it's a little harder for me to be like, but then, at the end of the day, when that movie finishes, like, I'm just like, I love these characters, I love the journey that we just went on, and, you know, I can watch it again. So for me, that was just the one thing that I was like, anything stand out to you as far as that you thought, you know?
No, I mean, I think
as much?
You know, like I pointed out, obviously the deviants are a bit underutilized, but I guess I hadn't thought of it as deeply as you with the whole, like, well, now, you know, the core and everything is all screwed up. I mean, I do remember thinking, like, well, where does he fit? Like, where does he actually sit all this time?
Because my thought was, like, how is this going to affect moving forward, right? We see that scene where, like, on the news, it's literally just explained as, like, these weird boulders showed up in, you know, the Indian Ocean or something. And
well, it's funny that you say that, because I actually thought, like, well, that's cool. Now going forward, Earth has this giant, you know, space being sticking out of it. But one theory that I saw that I do like is, you know, there's rumors, I don't know if you've heard, that Namor will be in Wakanda Forever. The rumor, or the word on the street, is that, you know, the oceans just got trashed by a giant celestial being, and so somebody's going to be a bit upset.
Yeah. Okay.
But also, I wanted to get your opinion on this, because I thought about this the other day. It's been a little while since I've seen Endgame. I'm not going to quote this exact, you know, people can crucify me online, but so, you know, in Endgame, there's a scene where it's like the council of, like, the remaining Avengers, and Okoye, you know, mentions that there's been, like, some earthquakes, and Nat tells her, like, you know, what are we doing about that? And she's like, oh, they're earthquakes. Yeah,
we do nothing.
Do you think that was Tiamat?
I'd have to look at the timeline of things, because in the movie,
I don't think it's like as he's emerging, but I think it could be like, you know, I don't know.
Icarus does say that, like, because of the emergence, the Earth is starting to heat up, and that's why the deviants were released from the ice. Yeah. Whether we can believe him or not, I'm not sure, but that's a good. I never thought about that. That could be, they could have been them planting the seeds, right? Yeah. And literally. What's that?
I said literally.
Oh yeah. The other thing too that, like, as far as implications, you know, that this film might have is, where was it that I saw? I don't know. They didn't end with, you know, the Eternals will return or something like that, right?
It does.
It does, right?
I think. Yeah, like at the very. It definitely says that at some point. I don't remember which scene it's.
Right. So. Oh well, we got to talk about the end credit scenes. Yeah. So, all right, man. I wish I could have done a little more digging, because Eros shows up. Yeah. Thanos' brother. I'll be honest, man, I have to pull up my encyclopedia to take a look at it, but Pip the Troll I've heard of, so I kind of know a little bit. Do you know anything on Eros?
A little bit. I know that I'll get this, I'll put this right out there, because there's some people that are thinking it, that are really deep in the comics. He's a problematic character. He's got, like, you know, just how, like, Hank kind of has, Hank Pym, he's got a problematic history in the comics. Eros kind of has some issues.
You mean, like, his character in the comics has issues, or, like...
Like, there's things that I don't anticipate the MCU to adapt. He's essentially like a serial predator of women in the comics.
Okay. So powers, his character. Oh, okay, I thought like there was issues with, like, what his creation or something.
Oh no. So his powers are basically like he influences other people's thoughts of him, and so like
interesting.
So it's, you know, the whole argument of non-consent and stuff.
Gotcha.
So I don't imagine the MCU is going to take him down that route, but. That's another thing that, you know, in that leak I read months ago, they were like, oh yeah, Arrow shows up at the end. So I had an idea that was coming, but I liked it. There was rumors for a while that Harry Styles was going to be in the movie.
Which is funny because I was shocked, and
really?
my younger sister was like, "You didn't know?" And I
oh,
was
really?
Like, no, and I'm glad I didn't because I mean,
it's a very unique pick.
I think people can judge it, right? I think people are okay in judging it because they see Harry Styles and they're like, "Oh, really?" Like a pop star.
Yeah.
But if you really look at his body of work, I mean,
Dunkirk is a good movie.
Dunkirk?
He does a good job.
Christopher Nolan doesn't just pick people to be in his films. Yeah. So, and I think he has other work too. I'm blanking right now, but I know that he has another role. I think somebody else picked him up to do something else.
Really? That's the only thing I've seen him in. Dunkirk.
Yeah, Dunkirk, I know for sure, but I think he has one other role he's working on. I can't think of right now, but yeah. So.
Oh, I think he did one with Olivia Wilde, wasn't?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I can look it up, but
yeah. I don't think it's out yet, but I'm pretty sure that he was filming a project with him.
Yeah, so I didn't mind him. My thing is like, so is he really Thanos' brother? Because he's an Eternal, but they called him a Titan. I mean, but technically
Titans are Eternals.
Titans are Eternals.
Yeah, they're an offshoot. I think the interesting. I'm glad they kept him as Thanos' brother, but the interesting is that we're gonna deal with now is like. Well, was Arshem not telling the full truth when he told the Eternals that they're essentially robots? Because if Eros is an Eternal and he's Thanos' brother, Thanos is an Eternal, and we see that Thanos is not a robot. I mean, like, he loses his arm at one point, you see the blood and stuff. So that's where I...
But I think I don't know where I heard or I saw that the people of Titan, like Thanos' like lineage, they are an offshoot of Eternals that eventually, like, I don't know if they like mated with other beings, but like, I don't know. I felt like I thought that they weren't exactly Eternals. It's like they're like a cousin twice removed from the Eternals or something. Like,
I can't...
like where they like long time ago these people left and they kind of became their own thing. So.
I'm not 100% sure. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like,
Yeah. And Harry Styles has a movie 2021 called Don't Worry, Darling, and I believe that's the one.
Oh, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where they go with that. I like that even though the MCU is still continuing to go forward, we still have ties to, like, Thanos, because I love the character. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, maybe we'll get a little more of his backstory with the sequel.
Yeah, so I liked it. I thought it was cool. And I will say, though, like, I personally am like, very okay with the MCU expanding cosmically and expanding supernaturally, which we'll talk about that other end credit scene in a moment. I'm totally okay with it, because, like, you kind of go from, right, you can go from Daredevil on Netflix punching people on the street to Iron Man zapping... aliens coming down New York, right? And then you can go to, like the Eternals having this huge battle, right? And, they're expanding it more and more. I'm totally okay with it because we love Marvel, we love comics, those stories. Some of those stories are great. I can't wait for Silver Surfer, one of my favorite characters. Not that he's been announced or anything, but like,
down the line, like, at some point,
as the MCU expands, getting X-Men, getting Fantastic Four, and I can't wait for that. I'm very excited for it, but I am concerned that Marvel is going to start losing a lot of the mainstream audience.
Oh, really?
Because...
It's like too much. Like it
can be too much, and I know Marvel's not going to care. They're going to be like, we're going to do the stories that we're going to do. We're going to use the properties that we're going to do. But I mean, now that it's not Captain America, now that it's not Iron Man, now that it's not
there is a Captain America.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that
it's not the core people that they're.
Is that now we're talking about Shang-Chi being an Avenger. Now we're talking about Eternals potentially helping Earth in whatever way, shape, or form they can. Now we're talking about some of these other characters that we know and we like and we love, but that they're like, I liked it when it was just Steve Rogers. Yeah. I liked it when it was just Tony Stark, a billionaire that is just super smart and kind of a dick, and so I'm like, it's just my one concern, which is like, man, I just hope that the mainstream audience is like goes along for the ride, because I think that Marvel is on an awesome path to continue doing what they're doing, but showing that you can really, I mean, how much Marvel history do they have, right?
Yeah.
Like 80 years worth of like stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where they go. But I do have that one concern, and we'll just see. I think they'll be smart about it. And so let's talk about that second end credit scene, man.
I loved it.
So I loved it too. As soon as Dane Whitman, right, whatever his name is, the character's name, and I saw that Kit Harington's character was just like kind of not in the movie. I was like, I literally once that talk at the park at the end where he's like, no more secrets. I'm like, he's somebody because. I'm like, there's no way you get Kit Harington and knowing how much fans love him, people love him, and not give him a meaty role, right?
Okay. So you weren't aware he was Black Knight?
Oh no, dude! Oh no, I walked in not knowing anything.
Oh, okay.
Like I literally watched, and that's what I'm trying to do now, man.
Yeah.
Like I know the audience doesn't know, but I didn't see Venom until yesterday.
So
like walking into Venom, I made sure I avoided spoilers. You
should have avoided the whole movie.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. So, so I've been trying to avoid spoilers. So I knew who they were as far as like the actors, but I didn't know what characters they were going to turn out to be. And so when that end credit scene, man, I had to look it up, right? That one I did have time to look up. The Ebony Blade, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. And
did you recognize Mahershala's voice?
Yes, that's the one thing I got right away. I didn't know what the sword was when I saw it, and I didn't know that he was the Black Knight, right? Dark Knight.
Black Knight.
Black Knight. Okay. However, when I looked up the Black Knight, his outfit seems familiar, so I'm like, ooh, I've seen him somewhere, but I just can't think of it. When I looked it up, and then I read through it. But Mahershala Ali's voice, right away I was like, I turned to my sister and I was like, that's the new Blade. And the only thing I know, so you might have to educate me on this a little bit, but the only thing I know is that in the comics, him and Mahershala Ali like have like a sort of like team or something, or they work together on something, or they do something, but I don't really know anything other. I read up on the Ebony Blade about like how it can take souls and how it can absorb energy and how it can pretty much cut through anything. However, the drawback is that the person who wields it, the more that they wield it, the more they go mad or they turn into like basically you lose yourself in the blade or something is kind of what I understood. So I know more about the blade than I do about the characters.
Okay. So. Well, so there's, people are assuming that they're going to go down, kind of like you were mentioning, the whole team route, Midnight Suns.
The Midnight Suns, yeah.
And we're getting the video game, so it kind of makes sense, tie in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. There's a video game for it.
I saw something about it, but like I said, sometimes I just scroll so I don't get spoiled, but yeah.
So, Midnight Suns, people are thinking that's going to happen. I'm not, like, super familiar with Blade. I know a little bit. Black Knight, I definitely know even less on. In the comics, I don't think they're super intertwined. I think, based on what I have seen, people are actually pretty shocked that, like, this is how they're introducing Blade.
Okay.
But yeah, I recognized Mahershala's voice right away.
Yeah. It's so unique.
It is very unique. And it's funny because, like, I had seen a lot of comments that were like, oh my gosh, the Watcher showed up. And it's like...
What? Stop. Okay, no.
But I'm excited because, like, I'm... like of the opinion of go full throttle, do everything, bring in Blade, bring in Ghost Rider, and so Blade's just it's another area, excuse me, of the MCU that we haven't really we've seen some supernatural, but we haven't seen the spirits of vengeance, we haven't seen vampires, we haven't. So I'm glad that they're bringing that in, and it's a cool way that they brought him in, like with the sword. I think because in a way. Black Knight may not be a vampire, but kind of like how the person starts to lose themselves the more they kill folks. It's a similar like sort of.
There's a supernatural element to it.
Yeah,
because of the blade. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a cool way to keep them interconnected, and and I'm hoping Blade comes out sooner than later. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I'm very hyped. I mean, obviously, as a kid, I watched the Wesley Snipes Blade movies. I can't tell you exactly what the plot of them is right now, but I used to love them, and so I'm excited about that for sure. I would like to see, a Midnight Suns or something. What I really like about this, right? Like, I don't know much about the Black Knight, but I love the mythology that we're getting about the Blade already.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if you saw this when I looked it up online. It said that they actually referenced it earlier in the movie. In Eternals
on the Domo.
Yes. Yeah. When she has Excalibur and Sprite asks her like, "Is that the Ebony Blade?" And she's like, "No, it's Excalibur." Yeah. So I like that. That's Marvel does those little things where you're like, "Wait, what?" So so I really like that. I'm excited for it, and obviously So I guess that means we won't be getting Cottonmouth back anytime soon.
Who knows? Well, with this whole multiverse route that we're going down,
Yeah, man, and that's got to be a whole other video, man. Let me look up real quick where the movie's at right now as far as financials go.
So it's still pretty early in its run. I mean, it's had one weekend.
Yeah, so I'm seeing for the first weekend, so it made $71 million. I'd have to look and see how it compared to the other ones, but I mean, in the pandemic era, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
And I mean, the audience rating for it, 80%. I mean, that's solid. So it's interesting that you have that critic rating and that audience one. But I'm glad people are liking it. I'm glad people are going to go see it. I definitely think the way I've been telling people, and I don't know if this is the right way, because people ask me like, Eternals, is it good? Should I go check it out? Because people are still a bit hesitant about going out to the theaters. And so the way I tell them I loved it. Not everyone might love it, but I tell them, and they say why, and I say it is a very different Marvel movie. It is a more mature Marvel movie, and what I mean by that, I mean that it has more emotional. It has more emotion, it has more weight, and it has more character building. And so that's usually all I give, because I kind of want them to know what they're getting into. What I don't want is people to go and expect like a Shang-Chi, like action adventure, like not that didn't have emotion and weight to it. Obviously it did, but I do want people to kind of like, when I tell people,
prepare for a different experience.
Exactly, prepare for a different experience. But obviously, I'm telling you, I love it. I've seen it 3 times already. So. Man. So I think I'm super happy. I'm just super happy that Marvel decided to do something like this, and it really just gives me more confidence to see that. It gives me more confidence that Marvel is sticking to their guns and not falling to any pressure of having to stick to a formula, or of having to please audiences. They know the stories they want to tell, and they're giving the actors and the crew and the directors and the writers the ability to tell those stories. So it gives me more confidence in that aspect. And I'm excited to see what else we have to come. And we got a lot of huge movies coming, and I'm very excited. And I think Eternals, like I said, is one of the top 5 movies for me, not including the Avengers team up movies.
I agree. Yeah, okay, if you take those out, then
yeah. So man, any last final thoughts on the film?
No, it's really good. I guess to end on a funny note, there is a sex scene in this one. Like, if you're gonna take a kid, be aware.
Yes.
In one of my viewings, I was right next to a mother and her kid, who was probably like 8 at most.
Oh.
And I was like uncomfortable for him. I was like, oh God, like, oh no, like, I'm so sorry that you're going to experience this. But I think that just goes to show it's a different experience. It's not just the usual Marvel fanfare. It's its own unique thing. So be prepared for that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for sitting through with us. This was a big movie, and one that I really wanted to talk about because I just felt like it made such an impact with me. It left such a mark on me that I was willing to see it 3 times. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.